This video was sponsored by Matrix Fire Safety. What do you wear when you spin fire? A lot of that comes down to your own unique fashion choices, but there's at least one piece of that puzzle that we should talk about, and that is what material the clothes or costumes you wear are made out of. And one thing that they shouldn't be made out of is synthetic materials like polyester. Drex here from Drex Factor Poi, sharing with you the love of poi spinning and flow arts to benefit your body and brain, and today I am sharing a science experiment with you. Namely, what fabrics are safe to wear when you're spinning fire. Before we dive in, I just want to give a quick shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Dark Monk, Flow DNA, Flow Fests, Flow Toys, Juggling Calling, Pyroterra Light Toys, Spinballs, and Ultra Poi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can learn more about all these amazing companies and the work that they're doing to support flow artists like yourself by checking out the links that I've got down in the description of this video. Don't wear synthetics. I've heard it. You've probably heard it. We've all probably heard it. And here's the thing. I totally believe it, but I've never actually seen it put to the test with my own two eyes. I've never actually watched fabrics of different blends subjected to heat and seen how they react. So I'm going to take you on that journey with me. I'm going to show you cotton, polyester, and several different blended fabrics put to the test so you can see what might happen if you're wearing them when you go to spin fire. So let's talk through methodology here, because this actually turned out to be way more challenging than I thought it was going to be. First up, I needed to get samples of several different fabrics. I wanted to show how cotton reacts to being burned as well as polyester, plus looking at several different blends as well. Fortunately, I had some clothes that I was already looking to get rid of, so I was able to get several samples from this pool. I also have to thank the amazing Trey McManus at this point, because they have done more than anyone in the flow arts to push forward the science of how fabrics burn, and gave me some really helpful feedback on how I should choose the fabric samples for this test. Turns out, it's not just important to talk about what fibers a fabric is made of, but also the weight of the fabric. That is, how much of said fibers are in it. The less the fabric weighs, the less dense it is, and the easier it is to burn. The more the fabric weighs, the more dense it is, and the harder it is to burn. This actually made choosing my fabrics kind of difficult because I couldn't find 4 samples that all perfectly matched. But I did the best I could. Each fabric was cut into a 2" by 2" square sample and stapled to a piece of plywood. Why plywood? Well, I tried foam board at first and discovered that it was more flammable than any of the fabrics, so I had to go with an option that was a lot more durable. In terms of lighting up each sample, I took some advice from Adam May of Matrix Fire Safety. I took one of these torch lighters and applied it to the center of the fabric sample for 10 seconds to see how it responded. I'm told this is actually pretty close to the test that fire abatement professionals use to determine just this sort of thing. So yay, super legit. And finally, I ran this test twice for each sample, both in the center as well as on the edge. Why? Because the center of the fabric won't go up as quickly as the edge, especially if it's frayed. This is a thing I'm doing specifically for those of us who will spin in clothing that is distressed or has frayed edges. So, let's see how this test goes, shall we? Hey friends, so we are out in the back alleyway behind my apartment here to run this here burn test. So I've got 4 samples for us to run through here, and they range from 100% cotton to a 70-30 blend, 70% cotton to 30% polyester, a 60-40 blend that is 60% cotton to 40% polyester. For some reason, I could not find a 50-50 for the life of me. And finally, a sample that is 100% polyester. Now, you might be noticing there's another number sitting next to each of these fabric samples here, and that's the weight of the fabric. I wanted to make sure that the weights were as consistent as possible. I did my best. I couldn't find a 70-30 that was equal in weight to all the others, but we're relatively close on all the others. The only difference means that this sample is going to burn a little bit less than all of the others because it's a little bit heavier. So let's try our first one. The 100% cotton is our control. All right, here we go. 10 seconds, starting now. Cool, and that's it. So if you look really, really closely there, you can see that the edges are a little torn and everything, and there's just a little bit of charring on the board underneath, but otherwise, this is staying more or less clear of the board underneath and everything. Now let's try and do the same thing with the 70-30 blend here. And remember, because this sample is about twice as, it weighs about twice as much as this one, we're not going to see as much burning to it. But let's see what happens here. So I light it up, it's a little breezy, and go. Cool. Okay, so for the most part, it seems to be behaving a lot like the cotton did over here, wherein we're just getting this kind of charring. But I can also see just a little bit of the edges here. Do you see how there's like a little, there's almost like a web of fabric that's still left in here, like part of it has burned and part of it has gone away? I think that what we are seeing there is the separation of the two types of threads there. So as we go down to the 60-40 blend here, we should be seeing even more of the two of them kind of splitting in their burn characteristics. All right, now then, 10 seconds, starting right now. Awesome. Again, you'll notice that it is behaving somewhat like the cotton in that we've had like a little break and a little charring and everything, but there's also like a little lattice there where you can see the two fibers starting to separate just slightly. So I'm real curious what that 100% polyester sample is going to look like here. All right, friends, in 10 seconds, starting right now. Whew. All right, so one thing I want to compare right quickly here. Do you see how the edges of this have like started to melt, and specifically they're melting to the board? You might notice that trying to burn the center of each of these fabric samples basically means that it's kind of difficult to light them up. It's a different story when you light up the edge of the fabric. And this is why if you're wearing something that has like loose ends to it or frayed ends to it, this is the kind of problem that you are looking at. So let's come back through here and see how that works with each of these samples. All right, so 10 seconds, burning from the edge, starting right now. It's definitely got a little bit more charring around the surface that it was attached to and everything, but again, it's easy to come loose from it. Now let's try this on the 70-30. Again, coming from the edge for 10 seconds, go. Yeah, so that went up like nobody's business, and it's still going. You can kind of see the threads like separating from each other. I think what's burning right now in there is the cotton, and the polyester is kind of being left behind it. Yeah, it's an interesting combination there. It's kind of interesting to see that separation happening. That's kind of cool. All right, next up, let's try burning the edge of the 60-40 blend here. 10 seconds, starting now. All right, and now you can see a lot more clearly how the edges are starting to melt up against whatever surface they happen to be touching. You see how they're kind of like boiling there rather than simply breaking off? I'm gonna go ahead and blow this out because we don't want to completely lose the sample here. But if you come in real closely and everything, you can see the melting definitely starting to occur here. And that is no bueno. All right, so let's see what happens to our 100% polyester sample when we burn it by the edge here. I am expecting us to get all sorts of fun bubbly goodness. So, 10 seconds, starting now. Yikes. So look at all that melty goodness. Do you see up here with our 100% cotton sample how even though the edge of it is burned, we can still kind of like pull it away from the surface that it was on top of and everything? This is going to hurt, but it's going to be something that you're not going to sustain any sizable damage over. This over here started melting to the board. You see right here next to the staple where it like literally joined up to it. We can also see a lot of that melting around the edge here. So as we're going through these samples here, we see gradually stepping up more and more meltiness. First up here at the 60-40 blend, where we're starting to see the melting, and this would definitely be a bad day if you were wearing this. Up to the 70-30, which is not that bad, actually. You probably are going to walk away from this one without it being the worst experience. And of course, the 100% cotton, where it may char, but it's not going to melt to you, no matter what it does. But wait, he says, there's more, because we're not going to stop this test here. We're also going to do a test of different fire safety blanket materials. Now, I'm stacking up a duvetine against the sponsor for this video, Matrix Fire Safety's fire safety blankets. Duvetines, of course, are usually wool that's treated with a fire-resistant chemical. And Matrix fire blankets, I believe, are made out of an aramid fiber. I want to say that it is Nomex. And of course, you can also see that the duvetine is a little heavier than the Matrix fire blanket. So the duvetine is going to be harder to light up either way. And once again, we're going to try burning both the center as well as the edge and see what happens. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen here, but if I were to make a guess, I'd say that we're going to see more action out of the duvetine than we will out of the Matrix blanket. Let's see if I'm right. All right, so 10 seconds in the duvetine center, starting right now. Okay, so for the most part, the duvetine held up pretty well. As you can see, we're getting some charring here and everything, so it's definitely reacting to the fire. At the same time, it's done a pretty good job of resisting. It's not like we burnt through it or anything like that. So let's see what happens when we light up the edge here. All right, so as sometimes happens when we do these things, there's a little bit of the X factor to deal with. So the wind picked up as I was doing this burn test. So I'm going to try the next corner over instead, because this corner clearly has already kind of been dealt with. So, all right, so 10 seconds, starting now. Okay, so I think the lighter went out part of the way there, but as you can see, we're getting a little bit more charring here and everything. And those of you who have had difficult to put out props that have done so with the duvetine will probably recognize the char pattern here and everything, and why you do not want the edge of the duvetine to get involved when you're putting out a prop. All right, so let's see how the Matrix Fire Safety blanket stacks up here. And 10 seconds, starting right now. So I'll be real with you. If I hadn't tried to burn this thing myself, I would not know that anybody had tried. There's like no hint of any charring whatsoever. So let's see what happens when we try burning the edge, shall we? All right, 10 seconds, starting now. All right, so this time we got like just a little bit of charring, just like a hair bit, but by and large, that corner looks almost exactly like it did before we did the burn test, unlike the duvetine here, which really clearly took a little bit of, absorbed quite a bit of that fire damage, or I shouldn't say quite a bit. Well, I've got to say that I actually learned a lot from running that test. It was stunning to me how big a difference there was between a 70% cotton sample and a 60% cotton sample. I would not recommend that somebody wear the latter. Also of note, even though the weight of the fabric was 50% less in the cotton sample than it was in either the 60-40 blend or the 100% polyester samples, both burned substantially farther than the 100% cotton sample did. Yikes! I will confess that there was one thing here that I think may have thrown things off a little bit, and that's that the 70-30 blend weighed about twice as much as the other samples. So the comparison can't be completely direct. That said, if you're wearing a 70-30 blend or above that's pretty heavy, it actually handles much better than I would have expected. So back to the original question that launched this video. Why should we not wear synthetic fibers when we spin fire? Well, number one, they're more likely to go up. Both in the center as well as the edge of the fabric, it responds quicker to fire than a lighter sample of cotton even does. And more than that, while the cotton burns in a fashion that may break apart, it also does so in such a way that it chars rather than melts. You can still remove it. The polyester, on the other hand, those globs at the edge of it are places where it's melted. If it melts to your skin, there's no way to remove it without taking the skin with it. And as it continues to smolder, that means it's continuing to burn your skin for as long as it's in contact with it. Bottom line, don't wear synthetics. Polyester is not your friend. Where blends are concerned, aim for heavier fabrics, and if it's beneath a 70-30 blend, you're gonna have a bad day. It is seriously shocking to me how big a difference there was between the 70-30 and the 60-40 blends. Some of that is due to the weight, but the behavior of the 60-40 is nearly identical to the 100% polyester sample. I was not expecting that. So now you've seen exactly what happens when you burn each of these fabrics. Put that knowledge in your back pocket and hopefully let it inform what you wear when you spin fire, both wherever you live, as well as when you're out and about. And finally, let's talk about how the Duvetine and the Matrix fire safety blankets both responded to this test. Now, we can tell from burning the 70-30 blend that dark fabrics will show if they get charred. The Duvetine got charred, but the Matrix blanket did not. Clearly, the Duvetine held up to the exposure of the flames, but after a few encounters like that, I wonder how solid it's going to be as well as how effective. The Matrix blanket? Like I said, unless I'd tried to burn it myself, I would never have known it had even been exposed to a flame. And you know what? That's part of the reason why I asked Matrix Fire Safety to sponsor this video. In addition to being inherently flame resistant, a property you can see on excellent display here, their blankets are also washable and come with these awesome reflective edges that are super easy to spot in the dark. If you'd like to grab one of these amazing blankets, you can do so by heading to matrixfiresafety.com and using the promo code DREXFACTOR. That'll get you a discount on your order, and it helps the channel. So everybody wins, especially you. A round of thanks are in order. First to Matrix for sponsoring this video, and more specifically to Adam May for his fantastic help in putting this test together. Also to Trey McManus of Third Earth Fire. They teach fire safety classes in New York City that I'll put a link to down below. And to my friends Mufasa for the camera work and Ed for safetying during the shoot. You both rock. And finally a disclaimer. Don't try this at home. There's a reason professionals and semi-professional YouTubers get to do it. So you don't have to. Stay safe out there and always use proper fire safety procedures. Help share this information with other people. Please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to help other people find this video, and of course, to help my channel grow. And I also just wanted to put out a huge thank you because this video would not be possible without the kind contributions of these wonderful folks right here. These are my Flow patrons over on Patreon, and they, along with the wonderful people listed down in the description, make this video and all the videos on my channel possible. If you'd like to help me in my mission to bring poi spinning and flow arts to the wider world and help people learn to be creative with their bodies, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/DrexFactorPoi and signing up. You can get early access to all of my content, a say in what topics I tackle in the future, plus some behind the scenes and extras content as well. So go check that out. Please and thank you. Did you learn anything in the course of this test? Would you like to see me try it with different fabrics in the future? I get asked about rayon a lot, for example. Leave me a comment and let me know. And be sure to check out my other videos on fire safety procedures, including how to put out any fire prop. You can find the link to that playlist down in the description. Make sure to get outside and flow today, and I will see you on Friday. Peace.